I think the time and the team couldn't have been better. The given subject about crimes and intelligence and justice. He is a gentleman who is sitting in the Supreme Court, High Court and all over. And then he is very, very deep into the nuances of justice. Because perhaps there lies the justice, one doesn't know. Although some time back, the Honorable Chief Justice of India, who is an erudite scholar and someone unprecedented, he said that law and justice don't go together. He said it. And then I'm sure that you will talk about that also. That does it go together or they don't go together? Left of me is what this is Ajit Menon. Ajit's book I had a chance to go through partly, and then, well, it's a remarkable book. His storytelling is par excellence. And then a subject like intelligence, which can be very, very devious, and well, I don't wish to cite the cases and the stories going between India, Canada and USA, but the fact remains that it's something, which is very, very contemporary, very, very timely, and then he'll talk about it. Very briefly, if you permit, both of you, I'll just talk about the crime part of it. See, my life clearly divides in two parts. One, of course, exactly 34 years I worked in police. And nearly 35 years long back, I started an organization called Prayas, which took me to the voluntary sector, the social sector. And there, of course, I had ample opportunities to deal with the social sector laws and social legislations. And of course, as a police officer, I had the opportunity to deal with the India's criminal justice system. Really, it's a very intriguing thing to many that how could I be? Because on the one hand, there are multiple cases that we talk about. The two books which came out and which brought me here, I am sure. And the one is Khaki Industry Storm. In that book, I tell the story of India's most violent decade. 1980s, I call the most violent decade of India in 50 years. Not only when November 84 riots took place, in which 3,006 were killed mercilessly, one of the worst things to happen in the history of this country, but prior to that, there was violence. There was already demand for a lot of things. Subsequent to it, Lalit Makan, Arjun Das, General A.S. Vaidya, these three very, very important people were assassinated by the Sikh extremists. And that was very, very important. Soon after 1984 riot, as reprisal, as direct revenge of the killings of 3006, there was a very, very big case called transistor bomb blast cases, in which in 5 states of India, nearly 85 persons were killed, 150 were injured. That was the biggest single terrorist attack in the country prior to 1993 Bombay case. And I had the opportunity to investigate all these cases, which I have written in my book. That is first part of it. The second part is still more important for me, and then we shall take a cue from there, because part of it you are going to explain. The second book which came out recently, which has been doing quite well, Bloomsbury published it, and that is about, the name of the book happens to be Khaki on Broken Wings. When I say broken wings, I mean the police and the prosecutor being there, and of course judiciary being there, and third, of course, I say the correctional system in the jail, the prison system. They together create a very peculiar situation, and then there, whatever is happening about that, I am sure, Vivek, you're going to talk more about it, but then just to give a clue from there, whatever I have written, 4 very, very important cases, which none of you, I'm sure, be not knowing about. Jaska Lal murder case in Delhi, which became a landmark case. A lot of things happened there, details I'm not talking now. And I had the chance to supervise that case. The case failed in the trial court, and the High Court salvaged it, and the fellow was given life sentence. So that is one part, Jaska Lal case. Whatever happened in Jaska Lal case can be explained in one word, that nearly 35 witnesses were won over. The big game, money game and power game was playing at its worst. And then there, Jaska Lal case, BMW case, if you recall, that was a case, Sanjeev Nanda case, who happened to be the grandson of India's Admiral Nanda. And that case also was much talked about during those times. Third case was Charles Sobraj case. Everybody know Charles Sobraj, and I had a chance to keep this fellow in custody for long, nearly 1.5 months. And then That's correct. So I think at the global level, perhaps if you talk about 10 most devious kind of real criminals globally speaking, Charles was one of them. And I had very close encounters with him. I investigated Charles, and that was talked about. Fourth was a very notorious mafia lord who became a very powerful politician also, a character called Ramesh Sharma. Ramesh Sharma operated between Delhi and Bombay and all over. These are 4 cases I talked about. More importantly, again, I talk about these cases and how these cases were played around within India's criminal justice system and how the system failed, terribly failed, in the sense that the worst that could be possibly happening in the criminal justice system of India could be seen in these cases. In my book, I have brought out everything is very truthful, very authentic, starting from investigation and the trial and the final judgment. Starting from the lower court to the highest Supreme Court, I have discussed all that stuff. I have given my personal account also, because I feel that life can't be compartmentalized. As a person, whatever I am, whether I am founder of Prayas or I am a police officer, I am one and the same. With these words, I think probably, I think you start off from the justice part of it, and how do you think all about your experience? Thank you.
I have recently written this book, Chaff and Grain, in which I have explained the malfunctioning of the Indian criminal justice system. Let me explain how the criminal justice system functions and malfunctions. First of all, at the entry level, you have so many false cases coming into the system. So in my first chapter, I have dealt with how these false cases enter the system and what are the consequences of these false cases. And I picked up 3 instances. The false rape cases that are coming in, we read about them all over the media. The misuse and abuse of the Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribes Atrocities Act for settling personal scores, and the gross misuse of the law of cheating, where so many business, property and civil disputes are converted into criminal cases of cheating, because that's a short circuit remedy for recovery of money, because you can arm twist the accused and you can, get a favorable settlement from him through harassment. So this is the first chapter on which I have extensively written. I have given case studies also of how criminal law is abused in the country. In the second chapter, I have dealt with the most important part of the criminal justice system, that is the investigation. Investigation is the backbone of the criminal justice system, and it's a privilege to be here, with Mr. Amod Kanth, with his vast experience. I have coined the expression malvestigation. And I picked up some case studies to show as to how investigation is botched up, or the shortcomings in the investigative wing of the police. So I picked up cases like Jessica Lal, for example. Now in Jessica Lal, you would know that about 33 witnesses were hauled up for committing perjury. So allegations of perjury were made against about 33 witnesses at different levels. Ultimately, nobody was prosecuted. So, so therefore, whenever investigation is misdirected in different ways, it has to be prosecuted. Unless you take action against the erring witnesses or the investigators or the ballistic experts and other experts, the system would never improve. Then I picked up the Arushi murder case also. And in fact, I have answered the question in my own way on my understanding of the case as to who killed Arushi Talwar. This question is intriguing even today. So I have made an analysis based on the judgments of conviction by the Sessions Court and the judgment of acquittal of the High Court. Then I have gone on to discuss cases like Priyadarshini Mattu and some of these other cases, the Telgi scam. What are the problems that confront the investigative wing of the criminal justice system? After this chapter, I have gone on to discuss, a very important subject, the misuse of the law of arrest in India. The power of arrest is a very important power conferred upon the police officers, and how it is grossly abused. So in spite of the Supreme Court laying down principles of necessity of arrest should never be mechanical, but how the investigating officers, how they continue to misuse the power of arrest. Then I have gone on to address a very interesting subject, bail not jail or jail not bail. If the law of bail was to very liberally apply, then you will have criminals and terrorists roaming the streets. And if you were to conservatively apply this principle, that means jail not bail, then you may have many innocents who may be incarcerated in jail for years, and ultimately they might be acquitted. So I have given so many case studies on this issue. So similarly, I have dealt with how the criminal justice system malfunctions. I must say one point, and then I must give the mic to my good friend Ajit Menon. The Supreme Court has said that we hardly come across any witness who speaks the truth. Every testimony of a witness contains falsities, embellishments, embroideries, exaggerations. And then the Supreme Court has gone on to say that the poor judge, what does he do? He relies upon God and good luck, and he tries to analyze as to what may have happened at the time of the incident. So this is how criminal justice is delivered in India. So with these remarks, I must give the mic to Mr. Menon, and I must say that intelligence, the whole criminal justice system functions on intelligence and investigation. So these are the two very important wings of the criminal justice system. I come later. I stand for the condemned man, the accused normally.
The underbelly.
Over to you, Mr. Menon.
Just a sentence. The underbelly, dirty belly at times of India's criminal justice system lies with you. I am not saying it's not important. Actually, starting from the investigation of cases to all these steps. But what he does, what I think Ajit has found out, and in a fictional manner he has presented in his book, is something very different and very, very interesting. Ajit.
Before he starts, he represents the Mukhbar Khas, the man, the informer, the secret informer, who gives information to Mr. Amod Kanth when he starts his investigation.
Okay, so I think there's been too much praise. Actually, these are the two big men, the police officer and the lawyer. I'm just a curious patriot, if I were to put it. I come from the corporate world, have been in the corporate world all my life. And one thing that you learn in the corporate world is how to be on your toes and how to gather enough and more information so that you're not hit below the belt at any given point of time. So that was something which was inbuilt in me, as it's like, especially since I was working in the hotel industry and in the aviation industry. Things just happen to you at the, without announcing, so you need to be prepared all the time. So the kind of gathering information was always there, is like, in me. The second thing was that my father was in the Intelligence Bureau. He was the Joint Assistant Director for ARC. He retired. He's 97 years old now. I grew up listening to his stories, but the unfortunate part, fortunate as well as unfortunate, was that every time he used to tell me a story, he would tell me the story halfway and then he would stop and he'd say, "Baki confidential." So I always ended up with, a story which was just half. So मेरे अंदर भी ये था कि how do I finish this story? And I told myself that one fine day I will sit and I will finish these stories. But the situation during the growing up times was you have to be either a lawyer or a policeman or an engineer. So the family pushed me towards that. So I ended up doing all those things. But the moment I got the opportunity, when I was like kind of financially stable and everything, I spoke to my wife and I said I would like to go back to my passion. I want to sit and write. So today go like a job. I sit from 8:30 in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening. I'm locked up in my room and I sit and write. Now there's a little bit of a difference between what I write and what they write. They write about what has happened and why it happened, how it happened. I'm sitting and writing about what could happen. So for me, what I'm doing is I'm doing research. I'm trying to find out, based on whatever the government is saying, whatever the intelligence bureau is saying, whatever is happening across the globe, around the world, and the outcomes, and I'm saying that this could all be because of this. So I'm kind of predicting. So it's a big responsibility in terms of it could go wrong, it could go right. But luckily for me, it's just like, the first book which I wrote, Panthers Ghost, the beginning, I finished writing it in 2019. 2020, the COVID hit, so Bloomsbury, the publisher, decided to publish it only in 2022. But by that time, when they published it, what I had predicted had already happened. So I kind of rode the wave. Otherwise, I wouldn't be rated in the top 15 best books to read or whatever it is. It is luck as well as a little bit of hard work.
Wanted to say something about the value of intelligence at the national level. India's integrity, India's sovereignty, security it hinges upon intelligence. Something very important.
So there are different types of intelligence. One is I'm not talking about the intelligence that we all carry. I'm talking about the intelligence which you gather. So one is when there are petty crimes, smaller things. So there is a certain amount of intelligence that you carry as a human intelligence. You talk to people and others. But when you want to prevent big mishaps from happening, when you learn from big terror incidents in your country, and then you want to ensure, that such things should not happen in future, then you end up putting up a proper intelligence system, divisions, departments, organizations, which toil morning to evening. That can be through AI, that can be through technology, through wiretapping, to phone tapping, to decoding this thing, including having people infiltrate into major terror organizations, risking their lives and giving you information, so that we have something called as a proactive way of fighting this terror before it can actually hit you. And that proactive intelligence is what is helping India after that 26/11 to stay safe. All of us sleep very safely at night thanks to that. But like Mr. Amod Kanth was saying, intelligence is a slightly slippery slope, in the sense that you sometimes you end up using that intelligence to take some decisions. At the end of it, what matters is gathering that intelligence and using that intelligence in a timely manner, in the most effective way. And if that goes wrong, then it's risky. Recently, like you mentioned, you must have heard the incident of Nijjar getting assassinated in Canada. Gurpreet Singh Mannu being hit, an attempt being made at him in the US. It has become a little messy. In my view, personally, it's it's intelligence applied in a slightly wrongish way or whatever it might be. But then a lot of other things have happened. And a lot of proactively eliminations have taken place, which has kept us also safe. We'll go further into these things, but in the paucity of time, I have to make sure that I moderate myself, and keep stock of my time which is there.
Thank you.
I-
You are very, very contemporary in your experience now.
I have a question for you, Mr. Amod Kanth. You know, with your vast experience in investigation, please tell us about the challenges of investigation in the context of the Indian criminal justice system. You know, maybe a few words on this important topic so that you know, the people, the audience can understand what challenges are faced by investigators on a day-to-day basis, especially while investigating heinous offences like homicide or murder or rape or kidnapping, robbery, etc.
I think all of you very well know that we are at a very peculiar situation. In the Parliament, the three basic laws of India, IPC, CRPC, Evidence Act, the three basic laws which create the India's criminal justice system, they are on the floor of the House. The Home Minister of India has already placed. He placed the bills originally, and then there was a standing committee of Parliament. I had a chance to meet Mr. Brijlal, who happens to be the chairman of standing committee. Now they have submitted the so-called revised three bills, which are very, very important. They create criminal justice system. Is that correct? Besides that, we have got local and special laws. Many laws are there. Now, what you said about challenges, I think you must understand that the criminal justice system of India, in the form of three basic laws, are a direct byproduct of 1857 Indian War of Independence. Some call it Sepoy Mutiny. It was India's first war of independence. And that was the time the East India Company was wound up in India, and the Crown took over direct administration of India. I mean, you guys know, I'm sure, 1857. So after 1857, prior to that, that famous jurist or lawgiver or genius called Thomas Babington Macaulay, he was the one who was preparing a great document, a real legal treatise for India. And then these three laws came up. And Indian Police Act also is 1861 vintage. It's a direct outcome of 1857 First War of Independence. The point is very clear. I need not elaborate further. These laws were meant to subjugate India. These colonial laws were directly made that there was a revolt which was very, very bad for the British to accept and tolerate, and they created these laws, criminal justice system. Imagine, the criminal justice system of India created 1860s, being operative now. I mean, came the entire independence movement, came the Constitution of India, came hundreds of other laws. Now, there is a point which I would like to make. There is a total distrust in this system. The entire criminal justice system of India the foundation is on distrust on the police, lack of trust on the witnesses, lack of trust on the system. That is the worst thing to happen. And that is why, because after all, the British had lack of trust. The British should not create a system like their own democracy. Their laws were very different. I think their laws in UK were very different compared to the laws in India that they created. That is one part of it. Now, where do we stand today? I'll come straightway to that point. See what happened, that on the one hand, you have got the byproduct of 1857 colonial laws, which still persist. Let me inform you, friends, I'm very carefully reading through the previous bills and the present bill. There is practically no change, let me inform you. And on one point, let me clarify the point that you mentioned, bail. I hope you are aware that the police custody presently is only 15 days. Now the police custody is being increased to 90 days. Up to 90 days, and if the police, I mean, whatever police is, I mean, the trust begets trust, I say. If the police was not trustworthy, probably there is something lack of trust which became part of life, I mean, the part of investigation. As a policeman, whatever I might have done, but I say that a lot of things happen in the investigation which happen on account of the systemic kind of framework that we had created. Now, on the other point, I would like to say, post-Constitution of India, and Constitution of India is a dream document, hundreds of laws have come. India has produced some of the best laws concerning children, women, disabled, poverty alleviation, right to kind of privacy, and right to livelihood, right to health, all those things, you know. Directive principle state policy has become practical law. Fundamental rights have been actuated that way. So today, post-Constitution of India, we have got hundreds of laws which are far ahead of time, much better than European laws, even British laws, I would say, and laws from USA. And pre and post 1857, we still keep a framework intact which is not helping the system. I hope I am clear. The framework is wrong. The framework, the criminal justice system's framework is such that even the best laws, they fail to operate. That's the point I would like to make, and that's something very important, friends. So one doesn't know what's going to happen. Now, what you said, you talked about, let's say, bail and etc. All of you know that in Indian jails, there are nearly 500,000 people who happen to be in the jail, incarcerating in jail. 76% of those people who are in jail happen to be under trials. They have no business to be under trial. Why should they be in jail? Under trial should be released, but that's happening. So these are serious issues which I thought we must flag, and we are trying to flag in our books also.
I would want to comment on, why the accused are not granted bail in many cases. I do feel, with my experience of 3 decades as a criminal side defense counsel, I think the judiciary in India has taken upon itself some kind of a duty to check crime, to control crime. Now, which is not the duty of the judiciary. The judiciary's duty is to adjudicate, It is to decide a criminal trial. It is to preside over a criminal trial. But if judges become like knights or governors, or they try to oversee, the system, then you have this situation arising that where, obtaining bail becomes a big challenge. And that is why you have so many under trials languishing in jail in spite of the oft-repeated mantra, bail not jail, bail is the rule, jail is an exception. In spite of that, at the ground level, the judiciary is not willing to apply this principle in letter and spirit.
Why don't you go a little contemporary about your subject? I mean, something besides because you specialize in fictionalizing a very interesting thing. But there is something which is happening on the ground also, okay?
I know, you're pushing me into taking out this, information. Just to take from what Vivek was saying, that whether the judiciary is trying to become the knight, or whether the police force, end up sometimes botching up the investigation because of which, the cases, whatever it is. Somewhere along the line, I feel, instance, it is the lack of the intelligence gathering that has happened, which has not supported, finally, in helping the investigations go through or whatever it is. And I feel that in today's generation, more and more emphasis needs to be given, to have a very strong and robust investigation system, whether it be through technology, whether it be through human intelligence or whatever it might be. But we need to really spend a lot of money, like in other superpowers, UK, USA and all that. They are able to finish off their cases, and then come up with a clear judgment and finish cases very, very fast. Why? Because the evidence gathering, the ability to quickly gather enough intelligence to put the whole pattern together and then submit it to the investigation officer, IO, to be able to present it in a way and then fight it at the judicial level. That's far superior than where we are. And we are reaching there, we are working, but I think the focus now has been more on large scale terror situations, instance where the government of India is really focusing on. It has not yet come on to the local level domestic criminal stuff that is happening. But I think in due course of time, it should be there.
One small point to add about the intelligence as we look at them. As you said correctly, that intelligence has to be there for all investigations also. In fact, most of the highly sensitive cases, particularly terrorist crimes, the crimes concerning national security, etc., they are built on intelligence. There has to be intelligence, and from there it starts off. But frankly speaking, I have watched, since I have worked in various places, in the capacity of SP, DIG, IG, Commissioner, DG and all that stuff, everywhere I have found that the information that comes from the people, ordinary information, grassroots information coming from the beat constable at the police station level, starting from there to the highest IB raw and all that, everywhere there has to be a chain of information. And the direction being that on the one side they have to support in controlling law and order, in combating things like terrorism, things like drugs, things like trafficking, all those things. And on the other side, the routine functioning of law, routine functioning of police also should be helped on account of the information that comes. It has great value.
I would like to say a few words on investigation. Traditionally, the investigation used to be first you catch hold of the suspect, you get him to confess, and then you work backwards. You get the witnesses later on. But now, we are in a networked society with the internet, with the technology coming in, with the DNA evidence. First of all, I would advocate the creation of an investigation manual. There should be a basic manual. And secondly, you can't have the typical traditional, inspectors investigating. You must get experts as investigators. For example, in financial crimes, you must get chartered accountants, you must get financial analysts. And then, in crimes of homicide, you must get in the medical experts, DNA evidence. And so therefore, the investigative mechanism in the criminal justice system needs to be far more robust. And I can see green shoots. This government, especially the Home Ministry, has been working on some of these areas to improvise the investigative mechanism in the country, but much more needs to be done, in the times to come.
That reminds me of Harshad Mehta. Harshad Mehta, I did that case in Delhi. I was in charge of Harshad Mehta case in Delhi. Hawala case also, Hawala case, B. Krishnamurthy case. When Harshad Mehta came to our custody, let me tell you, he was in my custody for 1 month. And let me inform you, sir, that he was like a teacher, being an accused, but the way he taught the entire CBI team, I was in CBI for 4 years, investigated Rajiv Gandhi case also in CBI only. Harshad Mehta, the way he explained to everyone, the team of investigators, about the share market, the capital market, how the banks operate, how the system operates. And that was a treat. That was a treat, being the accused in custody. So we learnt about it. And he felt so happy about it, although we punished him. But then, so you are absolutely correct that many a times the experts who, without the experts, bankers, like you said correctly, the bankers, the technical experts, today in the present day investigations, the technology has to play a very, very important role. And today we discussed about artificial intelligence and all that stuff. That's being applied to investigation. So you are correct, absolutely correct. Yes, you said so.
See, one thing is it's food for thought, and I will leave it hanging because some things is cannot be openly put forward. Vivek said that the Home Ministry is is really started working towards gathering information, intelligence, and everything to to be proactively there is to secure the nation. Just think about it. I think a year ago, or a few months ago, I think it's if you must have read the newspapers, we had caught the priest, Khalistani person, as is called Amrit Pal. This is he was put in jail. What happened after that? As it's suddenly everything went silent. Nobody hears about him. Nobody's talking about him. But if you connect the dots, within a few months of him being caught, what happened? Just for your information, between 2021 and today, I think almost 21 anti-India elements have been eliminated across the globe. Now, that could be a really, really terrible coincidence. My theory says it's that the person is who, the first person who was brought in is and put there, investigated, the information gathering has been such as it's like, that they're able to now penetrate into each and every network or whatever it is. So, from one small bead, as it's like, you start stringing, as it's like, and start securing and finding who could be where, what is their next move. And trust me, it's like, as you move to each level and catch each person, another Pandora's box opens, as like, and you slowly realize, it's like, this is a very, very, very large network playing, And if you notice another thing, as the elections are coming in closer and closer, it's like, you will notice a lot of activities happening. A few days back, it's like, you must have noticed that the couple of youngsters, it's like, jumped into the parliament, they sprayed, it's like, it's supposed to be the most secure, most highly, cordoned places. Somewhere, it's like, it's an intelligence failure. It's like, according to me, it's like, but why did it happen now? It's like, and what could be the possible reason that this is being done? So there is a larger connection. It's like, and if you start really investigating, if you start really researching, you'll find out that everything that is happening here is like, is not just limited to that particular state or that particular nation, our nation, but it's all globally connected to a larger, bigger cause or whatever it is. Because there are many, many, many people, like, who are interested specifically now in India. Because slowly we are moving towards a superpower. It's like, we are culturally, we are, we were discussing today, any superpower, for any country to become a superpower, you need to be militarily strong, you need to be economically strong, you need to be culturally strong. It's like, and when you start moving towards that, it's like, a lot of people may not be very, very happy. And that's what I research, that's what I look at. And I purposely write it in a very fictional and dramatized manner, in a layman's language, so that masses can understand it very, very easily. And the way it is written is also, as it's like, in a very scene by scene film format, as it's like, so that it's like, you feel like as if you're reading a script, so that, it's easy read for everybody. The idea is to like let people be aware, as it's like, and then find out for themselves and make a judgment for themselves on what is happening.
India's challenges, the challenges that we confront, I mean the machinery of police or the prosecutor, defense lawyers, the judges and the entire system, I think it's unparalleled in the world. There is no other country where even 10% of challenges are there, the real challenges. The kind of problems, I mean disparities, inequities, injustices, variety of things. So the Indian issues are mind-boggling. And I think one small, perhaps just for your knowledge sake, there is something called CCTNS. Crime Criminal Tracking Network System, CCTNS, about which we have written our books also. CCTNS has been developing past couple of years, through which we are trying to connect whatever is happening across the country in nearly 800 districts and nearly 16,000 police stations and let's say 25 lakh policemen. Some kind of connectivity is being created, some kind of connectivity. And then it would be possible for the investigator to get information out of it. It's a national data bank, which has taken a shape. So it's one of the achievements that we have. Yes, please.
Mr. Amod Kanth just spoke about the challenges, in the Indian criminal justice system with its complexities and so many problems are there. I must highlight one problem, which I have also addressed in my book. In the American system, if a testimony of a witness is false on any one material aspect, the entire testimony is rejected in the American system. The principle is false in one is false in all. Now, in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, it was argued in the Supreme Court of India that the same principle should apply in the Indian context. But the judges said, if we apply that principle in the Indian context, every accused would go scot-free. Because, we hardly have a witness, who doesn't commit perjury, who doesn't lie. So we can't be rejecting testimonies like that. And that's when the principle of chaff and grain was evolved. And what this principle says is, it is the duty of the judge to separate the chaff and grain, the truth and falsehood from the testimony. And then depending upon the truthful part of a testimony decide the case. Now, I have critiqued this principle in my book because, it's almost a divine function to put the Lakshman Rekha between the truth and the falsehood. But nevertheless, it's a principle of necessity. We can't have any other principle. But while applying this principle, I have come across many cases where even innocents may get falsely convicted. Because, it's very, very difficult for a judge to separate this chaff and grain. So that's why the title of my book. So, my book and these books, if you read them, just browse through them. They will give you a good idea, a perspective of the Indian criminal justice system. You read about these stories in the newspaper every morning. It will give you a perspective, to talk about these interesting cases.
I'm sure your mind should be full of queries. I do not know how many of you will ask about them, but with three of us sitting here, we'd like to hear from you. If you have got anything to say, any comments, please carry on. Yes, please.
Thank you sir, for giving me a chance to ask my question. Very simple question. I'm just a layman, citizen of India. Justice delayed is justice denied. We've been listening to it since I was born. Much before that, we attained freedom over 75 years ago, and still we don't get the justice that we want, and it's denied because it's always delayed. How do we, as a citizen?
I think a senior advocate like him is best qualified to explain, because he is attained the courts mostly.
Definitely, this is a very big problem, that we face. The simple solution is we need more and more judges. When you compare the Indian justice system with the other systems, the number of judges to the population is very disproportionate. So we need more judges, and that's the only way out. We need more of technology coming in. Okay. Now, in some parts of the country, like Delhi, for example, you can see green shoots. Things are improving. But in many jurisdictions, things are very bad. I was the other day told that there is only one criminal side single judge sitting in Bombay High Court hearing bail applications for the city of Bombay. Now that's, now therefore if you get arrested and you file a bail application, it may come up for hearing after maybe 3 months or 6 months. Situation is worse in Patna, worse in Allahabad, and let's not talk about the district level courts. So this is definitely a problem. We need more and more judges.
After 75 years, how come we have not been able to solve it?
No, I was referring to the new bill, isn't it? Because it was high time that this thing. There are some. Perhaps if you go through the new bill, the last one, which the Home Minister of India has put up in the Lok Sabha now, which might pass off, I think, which might be cleared this week or 10 days. I think there are some changes which are being suggested. To my mind, they are not revolutionary or radical, but then there are, and those changes might take place. So have a look on that. Okay. Anyone else?
Just to add to that question of yours, maybe at all the cases in India, all that might be taking time. But trust me, it's just like, at an international level, when it comes to terror, our defensive offense philosophy the doctrine that India has taken up is getting instant justice. It's already started.
There is a provision of community service type provisions are there, and bails are being expedited. Yes, please.
Yeah. Hello, sir. So my question, I will club two questions into one. So one is, we have seen heinous offences like a boy cutting his live-in partner and then throwing the pieces off. and we have seen heinous rape cases in the past, and still we see those. And that's and one of the theory of punishment is deterrence. So we have not been able to create deterrence. Why is that so? And second is, I got a chance to visit Yerwada jail, and I saw that the staff there is the number of staff is very less. They are highly understaffed and highly underpaid. So how do we go about the police reforms to make the criminal justice system better?
No, I mean, it's not only police reforms. Police, I think, to start with, Vivek told about police. I mean, whatever issues. So let's not discuss what all ails the Indian police. Although I personally feel, having served in police for 34 years, from lowest to the highest levels, let me inform you that I find the entire system totally faulty. I mean, there is no way, because I had the opportunity to implement. There is something famous judgment called Prakash Singh case. One of our very senior celebrated IPS officer. Prakash Singh judgment was translated into some kind of judgment, very strong judgment by Supreme Court of India. There are 4 or 5 changes. I don't wish to discuss, there is no time for it. Even those changes, if brought in, let me inform you, the change will not take place. So and of course, we have to wait for very radical solutions to these problems. And the point you made regarding the heinous crimes increasing or still multiplying, I think that goes with the society. That goes society. I mean, variety of things. I need not discuss the causation of crime, but one of them is permissibility. You accept a lot of things which is happening around you, and there is no protest. The values and ethics and the societal orientation, they are largely responsible for these kind of crimes which are aggravating. Okay.
Hello. My question is to all three of you. When it comes to investigations, particularly the process, as an investigative officer, how do you keep your head in the game and see to that you don't get influenced by any kind of power, and especially when it comes to sensational cases, when you're handling a rape case or even a case like a religious leader being convicted for heinous crimes. How does an officer keep away from influence of power to get the right outcome?
See, legally speaking, we have a very senior advocate here, and legally speaking, the police should be independent, and the police is independent. And not that it's by and large independent so far as law is concerned. Under the law, the police reports to either senior officers, the junior officers, or it reports to the court, and then there is legal process. But unfortunately, our political system is such, and our administrative and bureaucratic system is such, that these extraneous influences become rampant. That's what is happening, and that is why those problems. But ultimately, it depends on the officers. I mean, I am sure I was an IPS officer. Like me, there are about hardly 3,000 IPS officers in the country, 4,000. If they are upright, if they are very sure of what they are doing, and they are very well protected, I think probably things can improve. That much I can tell you. Okay?
Thank you. Good evening, sir. My question is to Amod Kanth, sir. With your experience in the police administration, we often hear this phrase of intelligence failure. In
Phrase,
inverted
correct.
commas. So how would you explain it? Is it that there were no intelligence inputs, or was it that they were very feeble, that they didn't mean anything, or is it that having given very firm leads, the police or the whoever was in charge didn't take enough those leads seriously? So how would you what was been your experience of intelligence failure?
See, part of the response I'll give you, partly I'll ask Ajit to give. See, my part of it, like, Parliament, what happened in Parliament the other day, it is not intelligence failure, it's a failure of the system which didn't operate. How could they carry, in the shoe, how could they carry that kind of smoke canisters? It went undetected. I don't think intelligence was the issue at all. Maybe these people are preparing for some time, so it's a failure of the system didn't operate. If you are able to operate system properly, it is not intelligence failure. Yes, intelligence failure. You have to say something. You speak about it.
So actually, in your question itself, it's just like you gave 3 or 4 options already in that. Correct. Before I go further, that specific case is just like of that canister being in the
Canister and
shoe. The gentleman is just like was very smart. It's just like he has gone. He has ensured that his shoe was modified. He has ensured it's just like it's plastic. He has ensured it's just like that it is encased as just like between 2 rubber sheets, so that it becomes extremely difficult. And to top it all, they did a recce and found out as it's like that the guy who is doing the screening normally does it from head as it like to ankle as it like they're not generally checking the shoe. Correct. So now if you say as it's like is that an intelligence failure? Partly yes, but did he take a chance hoping that that they might skip it? No, but he really went out on his limb as like instance and got himself all the protection that is required as it like in his case, saying that just in case if they really check my feet, I should pass, I should still pass or whatever. So intelligence failure, from the point of view of not being able to gather the right amount of intelligence to effectively solve a particular issue is what I will call as an intelligence failure. It could be due to various reasons. It's like being the lackadaisic, it's like instance, or the person is like was a little late in gathering it, or by the time the evidence or the intelligence was supposed to be gathered, as it's like the source as it's like instance has disappeared or been eliminated or whatever. Could be multiple reasons or whatever it is, but then we commonly use that term intelligence failure as it's like sometimes even to escape as it's like or justify as it's like instance some of the wrong things that is happening.
One gets an impression that it is, even if it is given, it's not taken seriously.
No, not necessarily.
Especially in background of 26/11, there were some leads, but they were glossed over.
Yeah, but the question is like it's not necessarily that leads are given and the people don't take it. There might have been certain set of leads that were given, and these people were all prepared for that particular thing. But something new happened, as is like for which even they would not have. At the end of it, it's a human being, as is like who is doing it. So a margin of error is always there.
There are cases. Any big event. I mean, when you are saying, our mind is running through hundreds of stories where information could have been found. You get the point. There are leads, there are informations, and we missed out. And that is where I said that starting from the lowest functionary, the beat constable, up to the highest level director IB, and of course DG police, who are the highest functionaries, there are umpteen material, hundreds of things happening around you. It all depends on the person being very smart, kind of very careful, very cautious, and is able to take that information and act upon it. So from that point of view, your point may be correct.